and fun. Our next keynote presentation speaker is coming all the way from Malaysia. She has over 30 years of experience in global HR, and her passion has always been to shift the perception of the HR role by developing business acumen and emotional intelligence as a primary HR competencies. Please join me on welcoming on the stage Miss Malini Vijay Rajah. I hope I pronounced your name correctly.
Good afternoon, everyone. Well, it's the last day in Kuwait. You got to sound better than that. Good afternoon, Kuwait. Right. It's lovely to be here. And I think I arrive on Monday, and I leave tomorrow. But it's so lovely to be in Kuwait. It's my first trip to the Middle East in general, and I'm glad it's Kuwait as the first stop. And it's lovely to meet all of you. Can you tell me what the picture on the screen tells you? Do you know which country that is? What is this? You sure? Yeah. Malaysia? Kuala Lumpur. Anyone who says it's another country? Well, yes, sir. Kuala Lumpur. Well, that's us in Malaysia. Well, yes, that's the Petronas Twin Towers. Anyone who has been to Malaysia? Yay. Liked it? Honeymooning. Actually, you're not the first one who said that. Quite a few of you have come for honeymoons into Malaysia. So please do. Sami? No, get married. Okay. Well, we're going to talk about something which I think is close to all your hearts. It's not AI. It's not ChatGPT. It's something that we, people in this room, do all the time. At least I hope we do. So the first question I have for you guys is, as HR professionals, are we people-centric? Yes. Anyone? Let's be open. As HR professionals, are we HR-centric? We know what we should be, but the question is, are we people-centric? Not 100%. Any other answers? Yes, ma'am. Sorry? How much am I allowed to be honest? Is that what I heard?
No. How much top management allows you to be people-centric?
Ah. Well, let's not bring the bosses in here for today. But for now, you tell me, are we people-centric? Okay, let me change it around. Are you people-centric? Yes. As a person, not because your boss told you not to, but are you people-centric even before you got into HR? Since born, yes. You're born people-centric. Wow, Ezra. Okay, how many of you don't think you are people-centric and yet you are in HR? You could do better. So does that mean no? You kind of know. You could do better. Okay. Who can tell me exactly no? I'm not people-centric, but I want to get there. Sir, you're not people-centric. But do you think you want to get there? Okay, perfect. Yes. Abdul, is it Abdul? Yes. What do you think?
I agree with him.
You're not, but you want to get there.
We aim at it, but currently we are not.
Right. So if I met you in the streets of Kuwait, would you guide me as a foreigner to the places I want to go? Because that would be people-centricity.
Absolutely, I will help you.
Yes, you would. But if I was an employee, you'd probably say no.
I will ask my manager first.
Okay. Well, today, like I said, it's all about people. There's no right and wrong. I know Muhammad Sami talks about HR being gray. I say it's many shades of gray. Not just one gray, but many shades of gray. Because we're people. We don't have a rule book. Yes, we apply a rule book on people, but we don't have a rule book. And ultimately, am I correcting? Is this working? People don't fail you, tools will. Right? So ultimately, today we're going to talk about, is this what we want to do as an organization? Because I've had CFOs and CEOs. If there's any CFOs in the room, please declare. No? CEOs, I'm sure we have. Okay? Now, the reason why I say that is there's always a perception that when you are people-centric, it's fluff. You agree? Yes. Anyone heard that before? It's fluff. Like, oh, it's not going to kind of have an impact to your P&L. You know, it's more cost. You're going to end up spending more money by making people feel good. Now, we're going to talk about that, and we're going to talk about what's in the long run. But in reality, people-centric management is a style of leadership where we say we prioritize on people, their needs, their well-being. And post-pandemic, well-being, physical and mental wellness is very much in question. And then we talk about what exactly does people-centricity actually mean? What is that? Now, in many sense of the word, we talk about a workplace culture that puts people first, hoping that when we invest in people, we are nice to people, they would want to make our company successful. They will be interested in going the long distance with us to achieve the actual relationship, but most importantly, profits will follow. That's what we do this for, right? Now, there were many gentlemen yesterday that talked about happy employees ensure happy customers. Do you agree? Yes. I think it's true. Because when you are taken care of, you would take care of your customer. But the problem starts, I come from the retail world. I have 20 years in retail, all kinds of retail, from luxury to food. When customer service sucks, and people tell you that, normally it's because those employees are not taken care of, right? So what they do, they take it out on our customers. So how do we actually say that it's not connected to profits or the business impact? Now, prioritizing employee needs doesn't mean we have to listen to everything they say and give them everything they want, but it does mean that we need to make sure that they are working in an environment that is stress-free, it's secured, they're happy to work, they're not forced to do something, they're not allowed to say anything, that's not what it means. And valuing employees means they are an asset, a little bit like what Brad said. I'm actually a firm believer that HR is not all about cost. Training, for one, I see it as an investment, not cost. All right? We are happy to put a lot of things on the brackets of investment, but not people. So I do believe at some point we got to shift, HR training, anything in HR from a cost to the other side of the page, which is the balance sheets. And in turn, our people will be happy, motivated, inspired, and engaged. And that's what you want for your P&L, right? Now, before we talk about shifting culture, because you do need to shift culture, because you're now shifting from a very skill-based, black and white, to people, which is lots of gray, we do need to have the right people. We do need to have the right people-centric leadership in place. Now, what does that really mean? What are the kinds of characteristics we want our leadership to have? They need to be able to build trust and want feedback, because they kind of go hand in hand. You're not going to get feedback if the people don't trust you. If they don't trust you, They're not going to do anything for you. They're going to be jaded. That's a term we used in the luxury business. Quit and stay. They quit long ago, but you know what? They're still there. They're still in your payroll, right? Open and honest communication is effective communication, because the moment you don't have any communication with them, everything fails, right? And this is what I liked about Jassim. You talked yesterday and also today. There's quite a few on the panel. I say this a lot to our board and CEOs. Let's stop talking about people and talk to the people. Okay? We're very good in doing presentations over presentations about who's that and who's this and talent reviews, you name it. But you know what? The people who we talk about don't have a clue. Right? How do we change that? And this is about leadership, guys, because not everybody is doing that. Not everybody is not doing that either. Empowering people to deliver. And by this, I don't mean just giving somebody an autonomy, flexibility. I'm also talking about tools. I'm also talking about work environments. Today, people want hybrid. Today, some sectors, they actually want to work remotely. When we do search assignments, we have the first question as, is this work from home, or is this work from office, or hybrid, the very least? So times are changing, guys. The pandemic has really changed a lot of things. Question is, are we ready to embrace this change? And if we want to hire the best people? Promoting work-life balance. From an employee perspective, I want to have some time with my family, just as much time I'm spending at work. You spend the best 8 hours of a day at work, not maybe physically at work, but definitely doing work. Don't you think you need some time to be with your family? Is that too much to ask, HR friends? Work-life balance. I know we talked about it, but nobody really talked about it, meaning, are you in favor of work-life balance? Yes. All right, I definitely need to get you a mic. Because I think it's important, because you might want to put that in your policy. Do we have a mic for this lovely young lady here? Hello, sir. Right, tell us.
I think the concept of work-life balance is getting more popular nowadays with the Gen Z entering the workforce, because I would say these are the me generation, where they value things that other generations did not value. So there's more emphasis on it nowadays. It's critical. This is, I would say, the bare minimum someone might ask for. And as you said, it impacts the morale of an employee, and as a result, it would affect their productivity. So to me, as a non-monetary benefit, this comes number one.
Right. So, emailing or having multiple chat groups for your employees and trying to initiate a chat at 10 p.m., is that promoting work-life balance? No? Yes? Is that okay? That's okay? No? Anyone says yes, sir? You said yes? It's okay? It's just for you? Okay. Anyone else? Is that okay? Yes, Sarah.
I don't think there's anything called work-life balance. Today, it's work-life blend. And there are times that we have to send a message at 10 o'clock at night. Is that acceptable? No, not every single night, but occasionally we just have to do it. So I think it's blend, not balance.
Agreed, agreed. Now, again, this is from an employee perspective, right? I was in a tech organization where they would expect responses to come almost immediately. And it's not a one-off, right? Blending work, in terms of balancing it, is fine. But sometimes some of us at work expect a response back, expect a conversation to carry on. So again, if it's a one-off, I think it's fine. It's one way. Oh, by the way, guys, tomorrow I'm going to be late. No need to be there at 9. That's a different story. But if you're going to ask questions and it goes on and carry on, something for you to think about, because this is what is prompting employees to feel they don't have time to relax at home. Again, there's a big difference between what we see and how we see as things and how employees look at it. The oculars are quite different. How do we ensure that it's the same? But at the end of the day, we need to ensure that we're inspiring. We inspire them to grow with us, not grow elsewhere. We are motivating them, and they're engaged, all right? And your surveys certainly is going to tell you that. Now, some of the best practice in people-centric cultures include the whole healthier work-life balance. When I say that, I'm talking also about physical and mental wellness. How much do we help our people to deal with stress, burnouts in our organizations? Adapting to change. Pre-pandemic, you didn't hear too much of burnouts, but today it exists. In one of the organizations I support, we have a psychologist who supports them in terms of dealing with stressed employees. And one of the situations that came up in this live scenario was there was no way but to move that individual out of that job role to something else. Great employee, productive, performing, ticked all the boxes that you want in the performance list, but he was just too tired and too stressed. All right? So if you don't want to lose a talent, you may want to consider moving him to another job role. All right? But that's also moving with change. As times change, we need to consider some of these things to be included within the organization. Celebrating diversity and inclusion. We talked about this a lot yesterday. We need to accept as they are. Whatever they are, whichever position they're in, whatever, whether it's gender, ethnicity, we need to make sure that we accept as they are and we hear them. All right? Embracing everyone who brings something different to that table. And in Asia, we have come a long way today. As I was telling Sarah yesterday, we're okay with the D, we're okay with the I, but we're not quite okay with the E. Right? Because there are certain government policies and constitution where you know you're not going to get that equal. But we continue to also ensure that in a people-centric organization culture, we equip our people with the right tools, whether it's AI, whether it's the right system, because you need to make sure that they're able to perform. Career development opportunities, whether they're upskilling, reskilling, cross-skilling, these are things you want to make sure that you provide, and also ensure that we understand what is it that they want to do. Because if they want to do A and you want them to do B, what kind of upskilling would you provide them with? And hence why talking to the people always helps. And connecting values to behaviors. This is something that we did as part of the Jardines group in Asia. That's North Asia, South Asia. And what we did was we made sure we brought the values to life by connecting it to behaviors. And we talked about it every day. We talked about it to the management and made sure everybody understood that. So you bring the values to life. And make sure they understand that it's not just what that we care about, which they need to achieve, but it's also how. Because at the end of the day, culture is all about the how bit. How do we want this done? Now, people-centric culture is absolutely critical. because we're not just talking about people, we're actually talking about a two-sided ledger where we talk about strategy, we're talking about culture. Deloitte talked about how people, team members, as well as executives, really believe that one of the clear aspects they need to take into for motivation is one of the top factors, for the organization. The other one tells you you need to have distinct culture. If you can't differentiate yourself, if you can't understand what is the culture of your organization, then it doesn't get you anywhere. So clearly, as Peter Drucker famously maintains, culture does eat strategy, right? And ultimately, the question is, are we ready to implement this? If you believe in it, if you think it's the right thing to do, would you take it to the board and present it and say, yes, this is what we need to do? Sarah? No. Are they doing it? So we do need that culture, but we can't have the culture if we don't have the leaders. And developing leaders, as you and I know, is not as easy as just waking up one morning and say, okay, let's just assign these 5 people in the organization as leaders. How do we actually make sure that that's the way that we want to go with? And a lot of times we look at a lot of the organizations want to have the right culture, but they think it's too painful. How many of you have had a transformation in terms of culture in the last 5 years? Pre-post, Sarah, do you wanna, anyone that you know that you can maybe elaborate on, like, the cultural shift? Can we have the mic for Sarah? Yes.
I think in terms of culture, everyone is permanently in a state of change. I think there's a couple of organizations I've been working with, particularly when they're going for IPO, so if they're going to go public. And I think they've really started to look very hard at the internal culture. I think because of the increase of things, the focus on things like ESGs, the environmental social governance, that has really started holding organizations accountable and creating metrics. So you have things like Bloomberg and Ravineviv and all these, the London Stock Exchange, they've got measures of which you
carbon
can start.
emission, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Not just even from an environmental perspective,
All of it, yeah.
but also from a people sustainability perspective. And that's certainly what everyone in this room is involved in, is people sustainability. So we all have a role to play in changing the culture to make sure that it's much more sustainable for people in the future.
Right, absolutely. When I was in one of the technology organizations as a group chief people officer, the first year they decided to bring in ESG. ESNG became my job. Everything, right? I had to table them to the board. I had to execute them. I had to get it done, measure them, put it back into the report, and make sure the board knows what we're doing. The second year, I turned it around, and I had a champion from every function. Because this is not just one department's job, particularly HR. This is something that the entire organization needs to work on, right? So, but when you have a turnover that is much higher, I remember we had a turnover which is about 25%, and we were losing all the right people, the people who had the right IDPs to grow. We had to fix that first before we got into anything else. But the reality is, this is not just fluff, because it makes business sense to ensure that you have the right strategy, you have the right culture, because you want to have fitter, happier, and more productive people who's going to give back to the organization as well. Because if they didn't work with you, this is not going to work. It's a reality. You might have the sexiest business plan and strategy, but if in reality they're not going to be there with you, it's not going to work, right? The reality also is high retention rates, and I'm not too sure what is an acceptable, maybe Mohammed Sami, you can tell me, what's an acceptable retention rate or a staff turnover rate for Kuwait? In Malaysia, they say it should be, we say roughly about 5 to 8% per annum. What is it here?
Well, actually here in Kuwait it is different as per the industry. So banking sectors are different from aviation, from retail. But of course F&B and retail are known to be very high when it comes to the turnover. So it depends. Again, HR is 1,000 shades of gray.
Yes, but what would be an acceptable norm? Give me a sector, maybe retail. What's okay?
Well, in retail we can go with 15.
15?
15, yeah.
Okay. So depending on which part of the world you are, in Asia, we have our benchmarks. Malaysia, we have an unemployment rate of 3.2%. You can imagine with 3.2%, we're not really talking about not having jobs. They are basically people moving from job A to job B. So the choice is yours, right? Now, having the right culture and having a people-centric management also means you're going to get a lot more innovative, to do things differently, to beat competition, to make sure that you want to showcase what you can do for the organization. You would do that. If they treat you right, you're going to treat them well. And ultimately, employer branding. This is also something that talent acquisition, everybody works on. How is the company branded outside in the market? How do people see the business? Is this an organization for me? Yes or no? If yes, why? Oh, they really care about the people. They want to make sure that everybody's heard, everybody's recognized, they celebrate little steps, baby step successes. But on the other hand, if you have a high turnover and people are not respected, your employer branding will start saying the same thing. So even if you think it's not, impacting P&L, employer branding has a way to be measured as well. And I think these are things that's very important for us to remember, that we want to ensure that the market sees us in the same way that we want them to. Next question. How human are we at work, guys? HR folks. Do we walk around with a checklist? General. We're human enough, ma'am? I think you should sit here, dear, because there's a lot coming from here. She needs, how human are we at work? And I really want to hear from you on this, because we're going to start talking about a little bit on humanizing.
It depends, because if we have policy to support us being human, or it's our just personal approach towards that. So if the policy set support that, then the answer would be yes. Again, there is a limit to what you as an individual can do. We try to be as human as possible, but then we need the support to continue acting that way.
Right. Okay, I hear you. Anyone who would like to? Yes, sir.
Yes, it depends on we at the National Bank of Kuwait, based on the direction that we have from the top management, that we deal as a people-centric. So we focus on the human itself. We have to show that human factor. Whatever the case is, if he's leaving the organization, we should apply the policy, but at the same time, we have to be a human. Because one day, maybe you will be at the same place at any other organization.
Right.
So always put yourself in the shoe of that candidate if from onboarding and leaving the organization.
Right.
And then you will see this among the others.
No, I think that's fantastic. Anybody else to share? Yes, Ezra.
Yes, I believe it's depend on our principle and approach. So how we are leading people, how we are managing people. So leading with empathy and kindness, it's very important to be a human and to treat people like a human. Yes. So we should treat everyone with kindness and empathy.
Right. Do you agree? Yes, but are we human enough, though? Do you think Sarah is human at work? Okay, she's overly human. Do you think we are humans at work? Are we human enough at work?
Can I add one more thing, please?
Yes.
Most companies are trying to promote for their practices being human using something like CSR. But again, they talk the talk, but do they walk the walk? This is a question. So I don't know. I think it's just a little bit debatable.
Are you human at work?
Yes.
Yes.
More than, as Sarah said.
More than her.
No, as she said.
More than what she said.
No,
Okay.
as she said, yes.
As she said. I'll give you an example. During the pandemic, one of the largest organizations in India, have you heard of TCS? They sent out an email to every single employee they had from their database, asking them if they are fine and if they need assistance. We're not talking about current employees now. We're talking about previous employees, making sure, because what has happened, the pandemic was something that nobody expected. So they wanted to be sure that all their ex-employees are fine. They sent an email asking them if they needed assistance, is there something that they can do for them. For me, policy or not, I thought that was a very, very human thing to do, right? So like that, we will have policies that insist on the way that we expect things from our employees. But we can certainly put that in a way that's human enough that they don't have to find us abrupt or demanding or inhuman. So I think at the end of the day...
Can I add something? So, hi. Can I
Ezra.
add something?
Sure.
So I want to share one of the initiatives that it's reflecting how human we are treating
Yes.
people. So in one of the company, we were laying off people. And this is the difficult situation HR can experience. So we initiated the We Care. We were sitting with people to terminate them, to redundant the position. And we had a committee that we are asking them to share their experience, and we are creating the CVs for them, sharing with the HRs, and doing the trainings,
Right.
how to conduct and how to present in the interviews, and how to present yourself. So, and we are supporting them to...
So like a career placement.
Exactly.
Right.
So, yeah. So this was one of the initiatives we supported people.
That's
with.
excellent.
Yeah.
Excellent, because trust me, you need money to spend for that. And I know multinationals who do it, but I know smaller organizations who don't have the budget for it. They do what they can, right? But ultimately, it's about, you talk about the person first, the whole person, and not just the employee, and to make sure that the people are first. Sometimes we forget that our employees are people. So we know them as their position, HR officer, supply chain executive, but we don't know that's Sami or JD, right? And what is Sami really going through, or what is JD really going through? So we sometimes forget there are families behind that individual. There are so many things that this person is going through, and we really don't know, all right? All we know is HR officer, supply chain executive. At work, we focus so much on the brain because we need to get things done, the body, we need to be physiologically fit. Do we forget to bring our hearts to work? Sometimes. I agree. Right? Particularly if you're doing in a redundancy program. I know I did. I wish I left my heart at home, because every program that I went through, in every roadshow, I actually cried. Because to see people lose their jobs is not easy. To even think that you are, involved in it and you're leading this, it's difficult. That's what I mean by a heart. That's what I mean by being a human. We got to do our jobs. You got to do what you got to do. But we sometimes feel that we cannot provide that space for them to be safe, to be secured. What we pledged, what we promised, in cases of redundancy, we almost feel like we failed, right? And in many organizations, people feel like they are objects, they are resources, they're just one of the other, right? Many of them go through lots of stress, and they don't talk about it, because the moment you talk about it, it's almost perceived that you're weak. When you talk about it, it's like, oh, she can't deal with this, right? But that's not true. In the West, and Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, there are support groups on so many issues. It's not embarrassing, it's not shameful to be part of these support groups, because you need them, right? So, question is, how do we help them deal with burnouts or stress, which is impacting work? At the end of the day, if it's not a win-win, it's a no-go, guys. It's definitely a no-go. The company doesn't win. It feels like we won for about 2 seconds, but before you know it, we have lost our best people. We're back to square one in recruiting. And I don't need to tell you how much it's going to cost for you to go back to the drawing board. Hiring, training, making sure they're okay, putting them back into the high potential, IDPs if they are good, everything. Basic 101s. We don't offer just jobs to our people. We build homes for talents to thrive, because their family depends on it. So we need to be very careful when we are making policies that we take the 360 into account. We have to respect ourselves before we can respect others. If we don't respect ourselves, we cannot respect anybody, right? And respecting ourselves means telling us when we need to rest, telling ourselves when we need to take a break. Creating a caring environment is actually embracing a commitment to help people grow, help them move up. The internal mobility policies within your organization should take that into account. Is our environment safe for people? This is a question for most of you. Is your current organization a place where none of the employees need to be worried about losing jobs, about being in an environment that, they just don't know how to manage themselves? Many call us as chopping heads. We like to chop heads. When the moment they see HR chopping people's heads off, because especially when there's redundancy, the only people they talk about is HR, not the business. Ezra, have you experienced that? Because I have. HR is the only one to be blamed if there is a redundancy. The business is not involved, because we deliver the message. We actually get it done. In short, it's not just about being right. It's about how real we really are. A couple of areas that's going to make us wonder, and for you to think about if we are indeed human. Listening and being inclusive. We can't be humans, and we can't humanize anything we do if we don't actively listen to our people. So talk to them. Listen to them. Understand what their needs are. And it's certainly not going to be one size fits all. You're going to have different people wanting different things. open communication. Talk to the people rather about the people. Sarah might want something else versus what Ezra wants. But it doesn't mean what Sarah says is more important than Ezra. No. They all have an opportunity to be heard and to make sure it's accepted. Every single diverse perspective that comes to the table can be different, will be different, and they have to be looked at. Inclusion is not just about what's on your policy, guys. Inclusion is about, do we accept our people as they are? Introverts go through the most stressful period during talent reviews because you know what? They don't shine. People are not readily talking to them or talking about them in a talent review. But it doesn't mean an introvert is not a performer. They might lack certain gaps, but they still have an opportunity to grow. So every voice should be heard, every voice should be valued, regardless of their background and position. Fun. How many of us have a sense of humor? Who said that? I believe you. Sense of humor, guys. That giggle, joke, laugh, light moment.
Satire.
Everything.
Females are very successful in HR.
Well, I think it's a direct challenge to you guys. So anyone here who is funny at work? Brad. Okay, I'll declare it for you. Okay. Guys, you've got the women all raring to go. How many of you? Yes, sir. You have a sense of humor. Perfect.
A wicked sense of humor.
Okay. Guys, anyone else who've got that funny bone? Yes. You kind of said, I'm funny, with a straight face.
No, actually, sometimes you need to be funny.
Yeah. Well, I think a lot of times you need to be funny.
We need it, of course.
I try to be funny with government departments where I come from, because you need to humor yourself. Because
Actually,
that's how long it takes to get things done.
and you are brave at the
Sorry?
same time. And you are brave at the same time.
Well, yeah, you have to take risk, don't you think? So, yeah, being funny, that helps. I like that. That's how we look when we're funny. So, having a light moment at work always helps. Whether it's in the board, I've done that actually. I've infused some humor at a board level because things were just too tight, right? Too dry. Even if you are working in a very strict environment, you can make it liveful. You can make it colorful. Only if you want to. Of course. If you go over limit, then you're not going to be in HR anymore. Not in that company, at least. But you got to know how to draw the lines, when to draw the lines. A hearty dose of humor always helps, guys, because it kind of makes people happy. Do we laugh at work? I know you do. I don't even have to see you at work. Guys, do we laugh at work?
Yes.
Is that a bad thing?
No.
You sure?
Absolutely.
Anyone who doesn't laugh, like, from morning till evening, it's that straight face.
All of us.
Yes, no?
Maybe.
Dinesh, do you laugh? Okay. Okay. Empathy. I know we talked about it at the EQ bit and many. Do we connect to our people on a personal level? I don't mean get really mushy and all that. I'm talking about really getting to know the person. Do we really empathize in some of the situations? Like what they go through. Do we ask our colleagues, how are you doing today? How's it going? It's not something you just say and then walk away, but it's something you wait for them to respond. Like, how's it going? How are you doing? How was your weekend? It's almost a tick in the box for some, right? But have you genuinely wanting to know how was the weekend, right? Showing interest is important. And there's so many ways you can do it. There's no one script or one dialogue you can use, but really genuinely asking them how they're doing is where you show about empathy. The significance of really showing an empathetic workforce is very obvious. I'll give you an example, which made me become a certified coach in social and emotional intelligence. In Malaysia, we have what we call, I think you have it too here, compassionate leave. So when they come back from their compassionate leave, they're supposed to bring back evidence to show that why it should be compassionate leave. So there was one employee, and I was walking past. There's one employee at payroll, and I heard my HR executive asking, so I see that your mother passed away. Have you brought the death certificate? Policy-wise, yes, we need it, correct? We need the death certificate because blah, blah, blah. But the way you asked, the person just came back. She's still in mourning. Is that what HR has become? We didn't even ask her how she's doing. Are you okay? You know, is there anything we can help you with? Nothing. Can I have your death certificate? Otherwise, it'll have to be unpaid. I still remember that particular stuff, and I actually brought her in for counseling. But then I realized she did her job, but she was just inhuman. There's nothing wrong in what she asked, it's the way she asked. Right? And she didn't even care. So we need to understand in HR, the first question I always ask in an interview, do you like people? For HR. Like in sales. I was also involved in sales. Do you like customers? Because if you don't like customers, don't even bother. I can't teach you to love customers, like I can't teach you to love people, right? So that's a very important thing. Making sure that they understand their job involves empathy, and everybody needs to walk the talk on this one. Gratitude and appreciation. I don't know how often do we say this to our colleagues. We're very quick to say it to our bosses, but I'm not so sure about peers. How often do we actually use two simple, often underused phrases, thank you and well done? I don't know if we're wired like that, but if we're not, we should get wired. Right? We don't say enough these things to people. It's like almost nobody cares. If you do really well in a presentation, I don't know how many people actually tell you, great job, good stuff. Yeah? And fostering a culture of recognition and support is very key. We actually had an employee feedback system, which is actually a peer base. We got them to give cards to everybody they thought that was doing an excellent job. So it was a peer-to-peer base. And it helped people understand what recognition was all about. It doesn't have to be about winning a big deal. It can be something very babyish. Almost like, oh, you managed to get the CEO to say hello to you, because we had CEOs who didn't even want to look at employees. So many things like that is about thank you, and I really appreciate what you did. Now in corporate, in retail, in the stores, we don't have this issue, but in corporate offices of retail businesses that I was in, they prefer to talk via email. They rather send an email than picking up the phone or just going down to the stores and saying, hey, how did it go? How many of you communicate via email? I mean, like, quote unquote, communicate via email. Not through the phones. I know, but if you had a chance to do it, I know people who would be in this table sending an email to that table, just asking you, how did you do?
critical sign of negative culture, because in places like that, people would definitely would just want to document everything.
Yeah.
And that reflects the blame culture.
Correct.
So when something doesn't happen as expected, they blame.
I sent that email.
Yes.
Right. So this is again a very insecure environment. You don't want to be blamed. You want to make sure that you do things correctly. And you can also shoot someone if they don't do it, because you have an email to show it's evidence, right? So if you need to send an email from here to that third table over there, just walk over. You know, go grab a coffee, just stop by the table, say hello, you know, walk around, not just to that table, everyone. One of my CEOs told me, every morning, Mel, take a cup of coffee and walk to all the directors' rooms, who are all my colleagues. See how you're doing? Cup of coffee? So it's really about walking the talk. You got to do what you say you're going to do. And who better than HR to do it? Right? And I think it's also very interesting to show that you are interested to know, interested to find out. And if you can't go over, right? But with WhatsApp, God, you know, like I said in the WhatsApp chat group, you don't need to talk anymore. Everything is in there. Right? So we almost forget how is it to really connect face to face. So if you can, set some boundaries on your computer time and spend some time really talking. Paying attention. So this is where I call it with a social emotional intelligence, socially aware. You need to, once you are self-aware, you know what you're all about, you know how to manage that, you want to make sure that you know what's going on around you. Okay? You need to pay attention exactly what people need and the impacts of our relationship in terms of whether you tell them to do something or they're not happy about it. And I don't know how many people do this, but do you ask them, what do you think? How many times do you check with people if they think the same thing as you do? You sort of do a check-in with them. Do you ask them that? What do you think? You might know you're right, but it does help to get that reiterated, right? And our staff and employees, they can teach us so much, but you just got to stop and ask them. Talk to them. And they're going to tell you. So paying attention is about, you know, self-awareness, social awareness, humility and gratitude. And if we are sincere, you would have no problems in saying, I'm sorry, my apologies, and thank you. But again, we sometimes forget. We do this at home. We don't say thank you, I'm sorry at home. It's the same. We need to make sure that we understand that before we care for our employees, we got to care for ourselves. Do we care for ourselves? Caring for others comes from an overflow, not from emptiness. If you are bitter, if you are upset, it's very hard for you to pretend and care about other people. Okay? Having consistent habits does help our health, whether it's mental wellness, physical, relationships, our development, and our sense of inner peace. We need to care. If you don't care, you end up not caring for anybody around you. So please care for yourself. And you're not going to get any respect if you don't respect yourself. It's very simple, right? We can't jumpstart anyone unless our own batteries are charged. Make your expectations clear. Now, we talked about performance management this morning. Setting objectives, setting the rules. Make it clear so everybody's aware about what is expected of them. And most importantly, no hidden agendas. There's no booby trap, right? So I think that's very important as well, to make sure that you need to do certain things in the beginning of the year. You set your milestones, that's continuous feedback, and then it's measured. Because it's disheartening for people to go home every day not knowing if they did the right job. Did I do it right? Is it 50% there? Is it 60% there? Right? So transparency is very clear. Without transparency, there's no trust. You tell them what you expect and communicate the standards. Honesty, transparency, setting the standards, making sure that they know what you want from them and deliver it. And this is a little bit about, I think, what we talked about just now. Even if you need to do a redundancy program, how do you deliver that news? How do you make sure that he doesn't think, or that individual doesn't think that you just don't like him, right? So clarity, honesty, and respect. That's very important. And creating value. So before you wait for someone to give you something, bring the value to others before you expect something from them, right? And making sure that the continuous commitment to finding out what's important is very, very obvious. You need to add value to them. My mom used to say this, be the source. Be careful about what you give to the world, whether it's negativity, whether it is animosity. What you give, you get. All right? I think that's really important. And making sure that if we bring negativity and disrespect to the job, that's what you get in return. What you see is what you get, right? And HR folks, I know it's not a rewarding job because sometimes you don't even get a thank you in HR, correct? Yes. It's not a very appreciated job. You still want to stay in HR? I know, I just need 2 minutes. You could have said that from there. No, but you could have done that, you know. So if you are expecting thank you for doing this job, you're not going to get it. I'll tell you now, but just carry on with it. Because the more you get busy with doing your job, loving your job, the appreciation will come. Finally, safe and non-toxic environment, guys. At the end of the day, if you have a toxic environment and you encourage toxic, people will leave. Especially the good ones, right? So it's very, very important to ensure that the culture of your workplace is not toxic. Don't encourage it to be toxic. Key takeaways: embracing people-centric management is inevitable if you want to grow, if you want it to be sustainable. Try to bring in the people-centricity first before profitability and efficiency. It takes two to tango. If you don't have your employees supporting you, you are not going to go very far in your business, in your creating your profitability. Let's see how we can make the transformation from skill-based to people-centric. And without investing in a people-centric culture, you're not going to reap the benefits of talent retention, improved and sustainable business. Lastly but not least, I like this. People will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you make them feel. All right? Completely agree. Any questions? Perfect. Lovely to be here. And I wish you guys all lots of success. Enjoy your evening. Thank you.